Welcome back to Trash Panda Off-Road. Today we're going to start prepping the Overland build to switch from a 2 liter to a 2.3 liter. There is my slightly used 2.3 liter out of an 03 Suzuki Aerio. I got lots of tips on Instagram of where to get it, and my buddy Austin over at Track Kick Off-Road, check out his channel as well and his Instagram if you haven't, Track Kick Off-Road. Anyways, he sent me a link to go find this thing. It was about 45 miles from my house, so I went up, picked it up. It's out of an 03 Suzuki Aerio. It has 101,000 miles on it. Came from a wrecking yard. It has been tested, and they're warrantying it for 30 days. Even though it's going in something else, they still are going to honor that. So from what I understand, throttle body has to be swapped, oil pan has to be swapped, manifold has to be swapped. So it's basically the block. I can use the power steering and the alternator I have off the 2 liter that's already in there, and the flywheel and the clutch and the pilot bearing off of, or pilot bushing off of the motor that's already in there. All that stuff has to be switched around. Oh, and then the water outlet has to be switched, because this was a transverse motor. It sat sideways. Now I'm going to make it sit straight, and so I have to take off that heater hose outlet and then run that metal pipe that's on the 2 liter. It'll come right here, so is that outlet. I think that's really it, but as we get into it we'll learn more, and we'll all learn together. Got started on this last night. Unhooked the starter, alternator, what else? Oh, power steering, pulled the radiator out, and then started to take the dust cover off, and then I WD-40'd all the bolts so that we can start taking this thing out. Already done videos on pulling this thing out, putting it back in, so we're not going to record any of that. But when we do get it out, we will set it up next to the 2 liter, and we'll do, or sorry, the 2.3 liter, and we'll do a good comparison so that we have a better idea as to what we swap out, so that going forward everybody knows. Got the 2 liter out. I know for sure I got to take the alternator, power steering pump with me. Water pump's already on that one. One of the things just wanted to mention, that's why I grabbed the recorder. When you buy the Trail Tough motor mounts, the Trail Tough unbreakable motor mounts, sorry, and those should be, I loosen those up so that I can get it out of the way to move anything. Anyways, it comes with spacers. Okay, one spacer is not enough for an off-road rig. When I first put the first 2 liter in here, I went with 2 spacers, and I went with 3, and I think it sat too high. I didn't really like it, so this time I went with 1 spacer, and it sat too low, so I'm gonna go back, I think, to 3. So you can see down there on the housing, it's got some chipped up marks on the top. Those line up right here with the oil pan where it's all chipped and beat up. So 1 spacer, not enough for an off-road rig. Got to do at least 2, just a heads up. Now that the 2 liter is out, I know for sure I got to use this oil pan and the oil pickup tube. So I'm going to start by taking those off, and then I'll find a place to set this. I'll probably set the motor on that. I've used that before as an engine stand. I don't know why I don't have an engine stand. I do this all the time. But yeah, first thing we'll do is take this off, take the pickup tube out. I don't guarantee I'm using this oil pan. I may use one off of that 2 liter over there, but I don't want to use that oil pickup because I don't know what killed that motor. And I know, guys, right? I have another 2 liter sitting right there, and that's the one that the timing chain blew on. It runs and does everything fine, but it has a tick in it really bad. I think it's on the lower end. Probably just needs a valve. Guide pin thing, I can't think right now. Remember, guys, I'm not a mechanic, but it has a knock in it. So we'll do this first, take this oil pan off, take the pickup tube out, put it off to the side, and then probably set this thing on that, strap it down, and then we'll walk around it, start taking stuff off, lift this thing in the air, start putting stuff on it. Drain the oil out of the 2.3. On the 2 liter, we took off motor mounts, clutch, flywheel, plate that the starter thing bolts up to. I have to pull that pilot bushing. One thing that I have noticed so far, this cam positioning sensor, I think that's what that is, maybe, is not the same on this engine. So I'm not sure if I can swap these out, or if there's a way to just get this plug in and splice it in. They cut that one, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. So I know that's different. I know the tube is different. Took off the same thing on the back here. And motor mounts on that side. I'm looking at, there was a couple of mounts I took off that I didn't need. A mount here that I'm not sure what it goes to, but I had to remove it because I took it off the exhaust manifold. Got a pile of stuff right there that I don't think I'm going to use, but I'm keeping it in the pile just in case. And then I took off, there was a air conditioning bracket right here that's now over there in that pile. But what I am noticing is that these bracketry is different here for my pump for the power steering and my alternator. It is not the same as this one here. I think it'll still sit in there and match up, but I'm just noticing, like for this one, it's got this spacer here. I'm not sure what that was used for. And this, I noticed that it hooks in here, whereas on this one, it hooks way down here and comes all the way up. So I'm gonna have to figure that adjustment out. I gotta run this water line anyway, so maybe we'll just end up taking all of this stuff here just to make sure it matches up over there. Probably the best option. Ran into another difference that needs to be addressed. On the back of the 2.3, this flywheel had this little pin in there as a centering type pin. This little spacer, this little spacer, and also the flywheel had that right there. And the new flywheel, shouldn't say new, the one off the 2 liter, which is actually a remachined 8 valve, does not have any holes for such a thing. But on the back of the 2 liter, it does have a hole for it. It just never had one in there of the 2 that I've put in. Actually the 3, because remember there's a motor over there too. So of those 3, they've never had that pin. The 2.3 did have that pin, but I was able to pull it out. So now we'll be able to, I also put the pilot bearing in there, so now we'll be able to put some Loctite on, put the flywheel up there. Probably gonna stop here and buy a clutch. I don't know, haven't decided yet. One of the other things I found that you have to switch over is your power steering and alternator bracket. Well, I took the alternator bracket off, but it looks like it's gonna work. I already got it down here. But this bracket here, the power steering bracket, also holds your motor up. Well, as you lift it, doesn't hold it up, but it helps you lift it. So anyways, it's got to be switched out with this one here, this big giant thing here for this one, because we need these 3, and this one here only has 2. So this goes into the pile of stuff that I found so far that I'm not going to use, and we will take this bracket, and we'll also take this hanger so that we can pick the motor up and put them over there onto that motor. It's been a few days, had other stuff going on, back onto the project now. I've switched over the oil pump pickup. The one that was on there was like that big because of the way the engine sits. That's right there. That's the one that was originally in there. The engine sits sideways, so it picked up right there, way smaller. So we did that. Took the clutch that was on here down to O'Reilly's. I had it warranted when I bought it. It was one of those lifetime warranties, so I swapped that one out for a new one. So we'll put the clutch on here, put the flywheel on here the other day, Loctited all those in. That's the little pilot bushing, pilot bearing. You get that from Trail Tough. All the stuff that I've used so far pretty much all comes from Trail Tough. So we're gonna put some RTV on the oil pan, stick it on up here. Remember, oil pans on Suzukis do not take a gasket, always RTV. So we'll stick that all back on there. I'm gonna use the manifold from the 2.3. I did have to move this sensor here because it was clipped back here, and I didn't think that the wiring would reach for it, so I just moved it over to this side because that's where the other one is on the 2-liter. Pump, brackets, all that stuff off the 2-liter. Belt off the 2-liter. I did replace this one because it was making funny noises, so I took that off the 2-liter. And I think that's where we're at. Oh, this toes water outlet pipe off the 2-liter, and it hooks back here. Temperature gauge, all that. This is my dilemma. I'm not sure what to do with this yet. It's on the exhaust side of the intake of the cam. It's on the exhaust cam, and I know it has something to do with the timing and the sensor. On the 2-liter, it's a sensor that sits up here, that just the sensor comes out of the housing. This is a whole housing with this type of plug, so the plugs aren't even the same. I'm not sure if I could just pull this off and put the other one on. Gonna keep doing some research. I have a call into Trail Tough. Those guys always be really good helping me out with stuff, so got a call into them, waiting to hear back. Okay, it's not a call, I emailed them. Anyways, so that's where we're at. We'll put the clutch on today, put the oil pan on, and then probably call it a day from there, because this would be pretty much the end of it, and then we're ready to go back into the rig and hopefully turn the key and hope everything works.